Hi, and welcome to Concordia Reports. I'm Alex Redgrave.
And I'm Misha Urbanski. We're here on the Mount Royal Lookout today to bring you a better view of our city.
And now, with our top story. Today, scientists and officials from all over Eastern Canada are flooding to Concordia. They're meeting to talk about what's in the water we drink. But there's one chemical that's not on today's agenda. Some say it's beneficial for cavity prevention. Others call it poison. Wendy Smith reports.
The dentist's chair, a place you probably don't want to be, especially when you're a kid. Despite his sweet tooth, 5-year-old Phoenix won't be in the chair anytime soon.
There's no cavities whatsoever.
Phoenix lives in Pointe Claire, the only city on the island of Montreal that adds fluoride to its water. Some dentists say low cavity rates there prove that fluoridated water is the best way to prevent tooth decay. Dr. Pierre LaRose disagrees.
Fluoride stops tooth decay when you put it directly on the teeth, not when you swallow it. A little bit like sunscreen. You don't swallow sunscreen.
And research is beginning to show that swallowing fluoride might not be so good for the rest of your body.
Bone cancer in kids is about 10-fold over normal compared to non-fluoridated cities.
Gilles Parent is a naturopath who co-authored a book about fluoride. It contains hundreds of studies linking fluoridated water to cancer.
They were all together at the beginning. These cities were not fluoridated, these cities were fluoridated.
It's a poison in large quantities, and you dilute it in water.
From toothpaste to soft drinks, fluoride is everywhere. Dr. LaRose believes kids are ingesting too much and don't need any more from the water they drink.
People who take small amounts on a daily basis for years and years have to consider that eventually this will accumulate in their system.
Dr. LaRose is so concerned about the possible effects of over-fluoridation, he doesn't use it at all in his practice. Ryan Young works at John Abbott College, where the water is fluoridated. He used to believe fluoride was good for his teeth.
That's what the dentist recommended.
But he changed his mind after he began combing through some of the research.
It's been shown to cause problems in terms of people's endocrine systems, in terms of the brain functions.
That was enough to convince Young to turn off the tap. He only drinks distilled water. I'm Wendy Smith for Concordia Reports.
The Eastern Canadian Symposium on Water Quality Research runs until 5 o'clock this evening. It's in Concordia's EV building at 1515 St. Catherine Street West.
Almost 40% of Canadians believe climate change isn't a big deal. That's according to a recent study by Ipsos Reid. But the media advisor for the David Suzuki Foundation says the public relations industry is to blame. Jim Hogan visited Concordia last week. He says PR companies try to make big polluters like oil companies and car manufacturers seem greener than they really are. He says they are unfairly attacking legitimate science and confusing the public. 2 years ago, his company started a website called Desmog Blog. He hopes to clean up the PR pollution surrounding climate change.
In Rwanda, over 100,000 children lost their parents in the 1994 genocide. Now, UNICEF is trying to rebuild communities through education, and they're looking to Canadian children for help. Melanie Halubowski spoke with UNICEF Rwanda's Flavia Mutamutega on how children are seen as the country's key to democracy.
You came on board with UNICEF in 1994. It was basically in the midst of the Rwandan genocide. What have you seen has been the effect on children?
The genocide was tragic on children. The effect was really destructive. Children were orphaned. Children had no one to care for them. Children had to to manage their own life. Most of the time in benches, in groups, sometimes alone.
The Rwandan genocide has left, I believe, over 1 million children orphaned. How is the country and how is UNICEF dealing with this issue?
Rwanda has the biggest number of orphans, I believe. That is, we have 1,265,000 orphans, vulnerable children. Of those, you have 100,000 families headed by children, adolescents, between 12 and 15, sometimes even less. Now, how does the government cope with it? It's a challenging thing, but we are starting to get the community on board. After the whole things we went through, we want now to reconcile, but we want the community to gain the values that they lost. The other program that UNICEF started was education, starting from zero, ensuring that children have access to education. We started school in a box. That is material that was in a box, which included copies, literacy, numeracy material, and they just would fix it under the tree and off the class started.
You had mentioned before, you were talking about how there's so many children that have to take care of their family, brothers, sisters. They have to head their households, basically. How do you expect them to do all of that and go to school on top of that?
It's a challenge, and I might recognize that the child of Rwanda today is really struggling to survive, but also struggling to project himself in the future. And sometimes it doesn't work. It's too much for him. So you find he's like a premature adult. But for those who, like, they have a chance to have a property from their family, they can, because they can cultivate the land, have food, and go to school. And the program that UNICEF and the Ministry of Education are doing is that we are trying to put on a process, a program, where even those who drop out can come back and have an accelerated program. Instead of doing it in 6 years, they do it in 3 years. So that at least we ensure them literacy, numeracy, and some skills.
We'll have more of Melanie's interview with UNICEF's Flavia Mutamutega later on in the show. Nothing planned for your lunch break? If you head to the corner of St. Catherine and Clark, you'll get a feast for the eyes. In this abandoned parking lot, Paul-André Fortier is presenting his solo 30 by 30. The dancer and choreographer uses the city as his stage because he wants dance to be more accessible to the public. Rain or shine, there will be a performance every day at 12:15 until November 18th. So on Monday, pack a lunch or get your food to go and enjoy a cultural picnic.
What's in a name? For residents and store owners along Park Avenue, the name of their street is more than a four-letter word. Ernest Hoffman explores the cultural lifeblood of this major artery.
Avenue Robert Bourassa? It may sound a little funny to most Montrealers, but the local residents aren't laughing.
We resent the changing of the name Park Avenue. Bourassa, he was born in Outremont. Rename some big thoroughfare in Outremont.
Well, I just think it's absolutely disgusting that this group of tyrants called City Council and the Mayor can just do whatever they want to unorganized people who are just ordinary people who have traditions going back 4 generations on this avenue, and they're just going to rip them out from under us. We're not going to let that happen, no matter how long it takes.
It's really surprising how strongly people feel about this. It's nothing but a stupid street name, but it's really got people upset.
Count Kevin Cohalan among them. A Park area resident for over 25 years, he believes street names are a way of preserving history.
It's a heritage issue. Place names are part of heritage, and this is an example of the city administration just arbitrarily coming along and changing a place name which has a lot of history behind it. History not only in the simple sense that it's been there 100 years, it's been the name of one of our main arteries for 100 years and more, but because it's one of the very first examples in Montreal of citizens getting together and making the decision that something had to be protected and preserved.
Way back in the 1860s, Montrealers began pressuring the city to protect their favorite playground from developers. In 1874, the city's charter was amended to preserve the site, and Mount Royal Park was inaugurated in May of 1876. The park and the street named for it symbolize this victory for the right of ordinary citizens to enjoy the most beautiful part of their city. But the street has cultural history too.
It says Greek Avenue, no Bourassa. Bourassa over there. Everybody mix up, don't understand very well. Greek Avenue, Bourassa. Yeah.
Park Avenue means refuge. It means solidarity. it means home, it means hard work, it means blood and sweat.
Sofia Florakis Petsalis is the author of a book about the early Greek immigrants in Montreal. She says that Park is still the heart of the Greek community.
In the 1950s and 60s, Park Avenue actually became Greek Avenue because it was there that Greek business began to flourish and where Greek people started restaurants and small businesses, because most of them lived in streets which were parallel to Park Avenue. Not St. Viaud, I think it was Esplanade, Jean Mann, St. Durban, Clark, and they worked on Park Avenue. Now, later on, these Greeks moved to Park Extension, and the reason why we did that was the accessibility of the 80. The 80 bus was right there. It's a bit like Europe. I like Park Extension. I don't live there. My mother lives there. I like the feeling of warmth that you get in Park Extension. What are they going to call it now? Barassa Extension? Let them stick. We know it as Park Extension. We feel it. The warmth is there. We want it to stay Park. They helped build this city, the Greeks, just like the Italians and the Jews have too. They deserve to keep a name that they want, and people should respect this.
For Concordia Reports, I'm Ernest Hoffman.
Montreal City Council is expected to vote on the Park Avenue name change November 27th.
And now, the second part of Melanie Holubowski's interview with UNICEF Rwanda's Flavia Mutamutega.
You were involved in the Child Summit, which basically brought children to Parliament. Where does this idea come from?
A UNICEF representative in Rwanda, together with the executive secretary of the commission, thought, we have been through this for 10 years. No one has ever lent an ear to children on this issue of reconciliation, of unity. Don't the children have anything to tell us about this? So they said, let's try. Let's see. Those kids who were 1-2 years after, during the genocide definitely have heard something or saw something or think something about it. Let's hear them and see what they think. And it was amazing what the children told us. Because the children said, you adults, you have to apologize to us. Because what you did, it's now us who are having the consequences, the aftermath.
The government finally apologized, publicly apologized for the genocide. What was the children's reaction? What did they think of it?
We are proud because we could facilitate a process where children can address the adult, even to the top level of State House, Parliament, and other decision makers. So they have created a room for children to influence, to address them so that the planning process can take into consideration the issues of children. What we did was like the evaluation. The children had to interview ministers, MPs on how they were putting in place the commitment they signed on. And this is interesting.
What are the immediate problems that the government and UNICEF have to deal with right now for the Rwandan children?
I think what is urgent to change is we as adults, our thinking. Culturally, the child was someone you have to think for. You just have to show him, do this, do that, do that. They didn't have a chance to think and to contribute. So what needs to change is to give them an arena, to give them a place to say what they think, because they have a say. Right. So we need to change our mind, we as adults, and leave the children influence some decisions. Yes, they need orientation, but right orientation. But they also have a say, they also have the right to say, I believe this is not, I don't like it. Just simply saying. And if he says, I don't like it, you let him because it's not good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that was Melanie Halubowski speaking with UNICEF Rwanda's Flavia Mutamutega. The last thing students want near the end of the semester is another test. But Moksha Yoga is offering a more flexible challenge. Tomorrow, the studio is inviting people to stretch their limits by joining the 30-day yoga challenge. After you sign up, your progress is tracked on a chart and in the mirror. By taking class every day for a month, it's easier to stay focused and balanced. All you need is a mat, water bottle, and towel. Just don't forget to breathe.
Do you ever feel like you're wasting time in traffic? Canadians now spend an average of 12 full days a year driving between home and work. And that's according to a new Statistics Canada study on commuting. But it doesn't have to be that way. Our reporter Sikander Hashmi joins us now to give us tips on rush hour driving.
Now, new 940 copter traffic.
I'm driving into the city, and I'm running late. The world is flying by. Then all of a sudden, it turns into a crawl. It happens almost every morning, to almost every driver. Relax. You can get out of this sooner than most others by driving smart, because most others don't. Number 1, go for the lane with the least traffic. Then, use most of the space in front of you. Most, but not all.
You do absolutely need that safety margin in front of you.
Andrew Matthews has been driving for 42 years. Now he's a driving instructor. But do we really need that much of a margin?
No, but this is, again, one of the problems of rush hour. It's traffic density. You got the mixture of slow traffic, which is mostly trucks, not always, and faster drivers, the more aggressive drivers, mixed in with the more passive ones. So you have this mix, you got this concentration. And this is why you need to keep your mind focused on what you're doing.
While maintaining your focus, look at the other lanes and pick a car in line with you or behind you. If it gets ahead of you, get in that lane quick. The longer you wait, the more time you lose. See a lane that's about to end? Use it.
There's nothing wrong with it. That lane is there to be used. You are warned 300 meters before it ends that it's going to end. If you want to take that lane and squeeze in at the end there's nothing wrong with that.
Empty must exit lane? Pedal to the metal. There's almost always some slowpoke truck you can squeeze in front of at the last minute. Be careful though.
Don't squeeze right just in front of him, because some trucks have huge blind spots right in front of them. The long hood trucks, they can't see the car right in front of them.
And watch those lines. You don't want a cop busting you do this. How much time will you save? No one really knows. But at least it feels good.
It feels like you're doing something.
For Concordia Reports, I'm Sikander Hashmi.
The creators of Yalla Journal say that youth are the key to peace in the Middle East.
The simple fact of the matter is, this is a youth conflict, with the old training the new. Hamas is recruiting the passionate and impulsive Arab youth to fight, and the Israeli army is made up of young obeying soldiers. If we don't try to stop it now, unfortunately we might have to wait for another generation.
The book is a collection of writings, poems and narrative by Jewish and Arab youth around Canada. The editors say they want to put a human face to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The second edition of Yalla Journal was launched at Montreal's Casa del Popolo. The event featured live music and readings from the book.
That's it for the show. For Concordia Reports, I'm Alex Redgrave.
And I'm Misha Urbanski. Thanks for watching.